Hi everyone, my name is Mitropoulos and I want to thank Besides Athens for giving an opportunity to speak to you guys about security certifications. I'm quite excited that I have this session with you and I hope you find it beneficial. Just a bit of background for myself before we start. I've been in the security industry for about 13 years now, so quite a long time. I've attended numerous courses throughout the years. I've also managed to get quite a lot of different certifications, and I do teach quite a lot of courses to individuals like CompTIA, EC Council and ISC Square courses. So I have an opportunity to often speak with others and get an understanding of what they see being valuable in their career paths, what types of courses they benefit from, and what types of challenges they often face. So the most common challenge people have is the course prices. This is by far one of the most challenging aspects to tackle. So you approach your manager and you say, I want to do a specialized course. The course costs £6,000. Whoa, that's not going to happen anytime soon. You have to be in a position to create efficient business cases. You have to be able to stand your ground. You have to be able to justify why exactly that course is valuable for yourself, and also how can that course allow you as a person to contribute to the wider business. In addition to the course price itself, you also have to think about any exam and renewal associated costs. Some exams are fairly straightforward and cheap, while other ones may be more complicated, may span across 2 days and tend to be quite more expensive. Finally, you have to account for any other associated costs, because if you're taking a course which is remote where you are, for example, you have to account for traveling, so tickets to fly there, lodging, subsistence, and any other associated expenses. Now, the time required for you to take a course might be 4 or 5 days, but you also have to think about the time that it will take to absorb the material. So you might attend a course for 4 days, but it might take you 6 months to actually study afterwards, take any labs, and ensure that you've solidified any concepts you've learned in that course. Finally, the certification exam, should you wish to take it, will also account into your time. It may be 2 hours, 4 hours, or for complicated certification attempts, it might be even 6 or 8 hours. The attendance mode is another thing that comes into play. Some people learn while they're on site with a trainer and individuals that they can ask questions, they can converse, they can have interactions with. Some other people learn better when they actually do a course remote. Also, another factor that comes into play is if you're going to do a course live or on demand. Now, the return of investment is really important for any type of employer allowing you to take a course. So what usually happens is you get your manager or they get their manager, and they always come down asking, so what happens with this course? What happens if the individual takes it? What is the ROI for my business? So a common question that pops into mind for a lot of people is, what happens if trained people move on? So your manager says, what happens if I give you 2 or 3 courses this year and then next year you move on? So let's try to answer that straight away by allowing Richard Branson to actually answer for that. So Richard Branson said, train people well enough so they can leave, treat them well enough so they don't want to. The question that comes in mind after that is, what actually happens if you don't train people and people stay? So how are those individuals going to be able to work and do their jobs properly, especially in security, where we deal with complicated threats all day long? So are courses and certifications worth it? Is it worth the time? Is it worth the cost? Let's see what others say. A study from ISC Square showed the majority, as you see on the slides, values how much their skill set improves. So 40% of the people from the study actually answered that they do security courses and get associated certifications because they want to improve. They want to add a new skill to what they already have, which is quite impacting. Now, about another third of the people, so 28%, have actually mentioned that they see that as something that they can use to enhance their CV. And this is quite important for people that are new to the field. So for someone that starts now and has potentially 6 months or 1 year of experience, getting the appropriate certifications in order to be able to convince potential hiring managers or an HR team of people that they are good to do the job is quite substantial. Most people don't seem to be doing it for the money, so salary increase doesn't seem to be a primary reason, because if you see the slide, it just comes in 6th place. It definitely isn't the primary reason for getting certified. And lastly, another thing I wanted to highlight is that about a third of the people do security courses and certifications because they do feel that when they attend courses, they do get the expertise that comes with them. Now, the training budgets come into play from the business. This is a study from Training Mag, and it shows an average of about $1,300 per person spent across all companies in 2019. It's an increase in relation to 2017, which started with almost $1,100, but it's still quite short. Now, in relation to specific businesses, as you can see, small companies reduced their budget significantly. In comparison to 2017, we have a decrease from almost $2,000 to $1,500, so 25% decrease. Mid-sized companies have also dropped from $941 to $829, so about $100 shorter, while large companies are the only ones that seem to have increased their budget quite substantially. The budget has skyrocketed and it has actually quadrupled in relation to what it was in 2017. So they went from about $400 to almost $1,600 in 2019. Quite an investment there from them. This is generic trends, by the way. Now, let's just jump into a specific focal study that Deloitte did, how financial sector businesses accumulate training costs around individuals. So as you see, the average is about $2,300. It ranges from $1,300 all the way up to $3,000. It does seem to be quite different. It does seem to almost double in some cases. But again, would this be enough for a security individual? Would $3,000 or $2,300, which is the average, be enough for them to be able to get the training that they need? First of all, let's just see some examples of some security roles. On the first row, you have CISOs, head of sec, so quite senior individuals within organizations. Then in the mid row, you have mid-senior levels, so security architects, security consultants, those types of roles. And in the last row, you have mostly technical roles, so incident responders, security engineers, quite a lot of different roles actually that require different levels of training. Some specific skills that those roles might have, these are just 3 examples as a comparison. So you have security analysts, security managers, and compliance experts. A lot of different skills are required in different areas. We have a security analyst, which requires quite a lot of soft skills in order to be able to cope, but we do tend to focus quite a lot in technical skills at that level. So individuals would need to have in-depth knowledge around network, around host forensics, around malware analysis, and all those sorts of skills. Security managers need constant interaction with C-level executives and also to have an ability to manage complex budgets as the team depends on it. They also need to be quite technical skilled in order to be able to efficiently drive investigations and also understand what exactly the security team is able to do. And then we have an example of a compliance expert. Compliance experts need to be specialists in a variety of standards, for example, GDPR, Cyber Essentials, ISO 27001, or any other standard that a business would need to be compliant with. They need to be very well versed in dealing with internal and external bodies, and also very acute in order to be able to cope with various teams within a business. Let's look at some questions that come up when we consider training costs in relation to what we've discussed. First of all, we know that there's a variety of different price tags for courses. We have a lot of courses that tend to be free, and then we have some other ones that tend to be quite cheap, and then obviously we have a lot of courses that tend to be quite expensive. So the first question is, which is the best fit for you? So do you believe that a free course or a low-cost course would be the best for your team or for yourselves in order to get the skills that you need and do your job? The slide shows another study from ISC Square, which shows that about 37% of the people participating in the study have paid for training and associated certifications through their companies, but there's also almost the same amount of people that they've paid for courses themselves, which is quite an impacting statement because it seems that there is quite a lot of gap still in how companies invest budgets for people to get the training they need. Sometimes we see companies using training courses to reward high-performing employees. It happens quite a lot, and we see people saying that if, for example, people are high-performing in the team, then the top 2 or top 3 will get a very expensive course. But the question we should be asking is, are those individuals the ones that should be attending those courses? So would you expect that someone who is already really good at what they do is the best person to attend a course to improve? Or should it be someone that is actually less skilled or less knowledgeable in that area? Certifications are also often used to lure high caliber talent. So sometimes you see in HR ads that they require candidates who have quite a vast collection of certifications in order to wheel them in. The challenge is that when those candidates actually start in a role, they might not get those courses or they might not give any opportunity to do training afterwards. So this is something that also happens quite a lot. And then another thing that we see quite often is training costs or training budgets becoming tool budgets. So for example, because we wanted a new SIEM or a new next generation firewall, actually that budget has been converted into a tool budget instead. Now, different approaches fit different types of situations. There's a reference slide here showing how many different types of websites we have, and obviously how many different types of vendor courses we have that are totally free. So this is just a sample, but there are quite a lot of these that are quite beneficial. And a lot of the vendors offer quite a lot of their course trainings for free, which is really good. For example, Qualys trainings are quite good. They're all free for all modules. Splunk offers their first level of training around their tool for free. And again, it's quite beneficial, and so on and so forth. So really good courses that don't necessarily come with a price tag. Now, open source tools are another good example. So especially for people that are beginners in the field, they can use these tools to get knowledge around them and experience, and then they can obviously get that experience and apply it to the workplace. Now, this is a really good reference slide of various courses that we see within the security industry. The vendors are ordered alphabetically, there's no preference there. Different types of courses again fit different types of people. Some people, for example, want to do a lot of technical courses. For example, they want to do CCNA CyberOps or CCNP security. Other people who might need a more backgrounded level of course, so they might want to be doing Network Plus or Security Plus to get a basic understanding. Some more experienced people within the industry might want to be doing some courses from IC2, for example, like CCSP or CISSP with specific focal points. Those courses would need to be done only if you have the necessary experience. So for example, for CISSP, you need to have 5 years of experience throughout the industry in order to be accredited the certification and be a full IC2 member. Some people that really like pen testing might prefer courses from offensive security or relearn security. So there's a lot of different options here. Now, I've just chosen a case study from Cisco, which actually highly demonstrates a particular path. So for example, you might have an individual just now in their security career and want to get the maximum out of it. That individual might start with a CCT course for routing and switching, which will give them obviously the necessary networking background in order to proceed further. And afterwards, they might continue with getting CCNA CyberOps, which is Cisco's cybersecurity track, which is a really interesting certification. There's going to be a professional CyberOps certification released later this year, which is really good. If they want to go towards network security engineering track, you might see an option for getting CCNP security. And if they quite like it and they want to dive more into it, they might even go for CCA security, which is one of the top level certifications that you can achieve in the industry. It's quite challenging to get. Now, what do people say? What do people see being most valuable in their security careers? IC2 shows that about 40% of the top certifications are from IC2 and Cisco. So you have CISSP or CISSP with a particular concentration, and then you also have CCNA security and CCNP security. Bear in mind that this study was for 2019, which was when the older Cisco track was still in play. So you have CCNA security there, which doesn't exist now. And then we also have another study from InfoSec Careers, which I haven't depicted here, but it still showed from a number of 200 professionals, about 50% almost considers CISSP to be the best security certification, which quite aligns with the IC2 study that was undertaken here. Those individuals after CISSP preferred CISM, CH, Security Plus, and OSCP. Now, some type of training plan. How can you actually design the ultimate training plan for your needs? So first of all, you can use obviously any free training that you can get. Any type of vendors you already have within your corporation, feel free to get the training from those. They do generally offer it for free because you've already purchased some of their products. You can do internal trainings. If you have someone who is really good already in some tools or in some security areas or in some security certifications even, you can use those individuals to teach others within the business. Brown bags, lunch and learns, mentor assignments are some examples of how those people can be used positively throughout the company. Inter-team trainings is another thing. You can, for example, have the penetration testing team sit with the incident response team, and those guys sit with the security analysis team. You can have meshed capture the flag competitions. You can involve management. You can do all sorts of things. You can also choose to train specific individuals in an area and then use them to train others, which is another really beneficial aspect. Or you can get team training packages that you can leverage from vendors in order to train your teams as a whole. Another option is offering practical elements, so cyber ranges, CTFs, those types of things. So for example, a hack the box, virtual hacking labs, or any other type of cyber ranges would allow people a type of gamified version of learning, so they can actually learn through trying to break stuff, through trying pen testing and those types of things. Self-studying is another option. If there is no significant budget, then you can still try to cover the exam costs and people can self-study for the specific certification courses. Then you can include training courses and certifications in your personal development plan, which is really good and I highly recommend it because it allows you to have this as a part of what you do throughout the year. So if you manage to get this approved through your development plan, there's no one that will come afterwards and try to not allow you to take that training. The combinatory approach in general is what works. You can combine free courses like the ones that we just discussed earlier with self-study, and then if you want to take at least one paid course which will maximize what you get throughout the year, that would be the ideal approach. If you're new, if you're a newbie in the security field and you're just trying obviously to get your foot through the door with HR, again, you can look at getting some of the most common security certifications that are being looked at by HR. For example, if you want to be a security analyst shortly, you might look at getting a solid foundation around Security Plus, Cisco CCNA, CyberOps, and those types of courses. And then, as I said earlier, experimenting with the various open source tools is quite beneficial because it allows you to have experience that you can demonstrate when you have those discussions. I've also built 2 scenarios just to show you a practical aspect of how you can build up these types of trainings. So for example, the first scenario is for a person who is quite new and they're placed in a team which has a very limited training budget. That individual can actually attend any free courses that they can get their hands on. So for example, through Coursera or through Udemy. They can also self-study for particular basic certifications because they tend to be easier to absorb, and they can actually do that without necessarily attending an official course, which might cost quite a lot. Examples, as I said, are CCNA and CCNA CyberOps, really good foundational certifications, Network Plus and Security Plus, Certified Ethical Hacker, Security Analyst, or Junior Penetration Tester. There is a mix of skills that an individual can actually absorb. You can also have a free virtual lab in your machine, or you can actually use an online available one like Hack the Box, which actually comes at a very, very logical price. All of those things are quite beneficial and all of them are quite achievable with a very, very limited training budget. And then the second scenario I have is in relation to a security manager or any type of manager for that matter, who has a very medium-sized training budget. Now, if you're a manager or a team lead, then obviously you want to do training for the whole team. You should try to focus on getting any team courses approved. So for example, if you approach a vendor with training passes or getting training credits, you can always get a discount, which will be quite beneficial for the team versus individuals just getting approved by themselves. Also, if you're using multiple tools within a business, it's not always feasible to have everyone trained on the tools. So for example, if you use 20 tools, it might not be feasible for everyone within the team to get individual training to all those tools. In those cases, it's really beneficial to have a specific subject matter expert and then allow that person to get full training while they aid the rest of the team as much as possible and get them trained up. It's kind of train the trainer approach. And for any specialty courses in security, then you would need to devote time and budget in order to allow those individuals to attend those courses. So for example, if you expect your team to be a high-performing incident response team, high-performing incident handlers, then you would need to allow them to attend at least one specialty course throughout the year to get those specialized skills they need in order to do their job. Now, for some final thoughts. First of all, there's no one size fits all. You can't funnel this in for everyone. You can't say to everyone, you'll all get this training, you'll all get the same thing. It just doesn't work. You have to spend time with people, get accustomed with what they want, what their aspirations are, their career progression, and also fit that into account with what the team expects and try to leverage particular individual plans for everyone. There's always going to be budget constraints. There's no question around it. Just try not to let it stop you. Doesn't matter the constraints, just work with the different approaches we just discussed. Training should be for everyone. It shouldn't just be for a selected team of people. So in my mind, you shouldn't be rewarding high-performing individuals, or you shouldn't be only allowing 1 or 2 people within a team to get specific types of high-end trainings. That usually frustrates a lot of people because they also want to get the training they see others getting, and it frustrates them quite a lot when they can. So you have to be very careful when you do those types of things. The other thing you always need to account for in your mind is, do you actually want the people protecting your business to have inadequate training? So whenever you get pushback from higher management, you always have to take this into account. It's okay when people come to you and say, we don't have a budget or whatever like that, but you always have to pose this question. Okay, we don't have a budget, or we have limited budget, but how are these folks going to protect the business, especially when they deal with incidents that might cost the business millions? And lastly, always encourage people to take some time from their week in order to do training or any type of research for that matter. I know that a lot of us in security work quite extensive hours, so allowing people to take, for example, 3 or 4 hours through their week in order to devote it to something like this is really beneficial for their mental health as well. It keeps them focused, and then you also have to remember that creativity is really important. It's almost equally important to productivity, because the research that individuals do might benefit your team quite substantially. Think of your team, think of what they need most, what you need most in order to protect the business, and that should guide you throughout. If you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or via Twitter, and I'll be glad to have any discussions around it. Thank you very much for your time.